These days, I think a lot about top signals. I'll never be the guy who's able to notice them while there's still time to do something about it. I'll always be looking backwards. To me, top signals are so interesting because they represent a pivot point around which the narrative shifts. Those special moments that so clearly represent achievement and celebration while the bull market is raging are the exact same episodes we use to invoke greed and hubris. This year's been rough. Way too many top signals to pick from, and all have left deep wounds that are still evolving. The top signals from 2022 hit way too close to home, so let's move this discussion elsewhere. In fact, let's go so far back with being confident that everybody is unemotional about it. Let's talk about the dot-com bubble. In the United States, the 1990s begins in the aftermath of an economic recession. During the first part of the decade, Congress made major changes to raise taxes and restrict government spending. This had the net effect of reducing government borrowing, freeing capital for private investment. Outside of the economic realm, the 1990s were an incredible time for computers and computer science. Technology was getting cheaper, smaller, and more capable. Household computer ownership jumped from 15% to 35% by 1997. And a few folks, backed by Department of Defense spending, had spent the last decade networking a few major universities and other primitive data centers together. If you're looking for a specific moment, it's October 1994. That's when Jim Clark and Mark Andreessen launched the Netscape browser, allowing free and open access to the World Wide Web. The moment this global network of computers can finally be called the internet. Netscape not only gave open access to the internet, it fundamentally defined what it meant to be an internet business, or more specifically, a dot-com business. Netscape was launched in October 1994. By August of the next year, it went public. 16 months after the company was formed, Clark and Andreessen listed Netscape stock for $28 per share, and that was only after a very last-minute decision to double the initial price from $14. On the actual IPO day, the stock got as high as $75 before ending the day at $58. The Great California Gold Rush of 1849 began when James Marshall found gold at Sutter's Mill in the Sierra Nevada mountains. The Great California Gold Rush of 1995 began at the close of trading on August 9, 1995, when Netscape, an internet company with basically zero revenue, some users, an incredible amount of excitement, was worth $2.9 billion. And so, things took off, and took off quickly. Before long, all it took was adding .com to your name, paying a college nerd to put up a website, spin a story about an ever-evolving, connected, data-driven world, and you could easily raise tens of millions of dollars for your .com startup. Here are just some of the examples that illustrate the irrational exuberance of the .com era. Webvan, founded in 1996, interestingly by the founders of the Borders bookstore chain, was a company that would allow you to order groceries online and have them delivered within a 30-minute window. In total, Webvan raised about $800 million at a peak valuation of $4.8 billion on a cumulative revenue of $395,000 and losses of more than $50 million. Another example, the Globe.com. Founded in 1995 by a couple of Cornell students, the Globe was one of the very first attempts at social networking. Think more like Reddit than Facebook. The Globe rapidly became part of the popular zeitgeist in November 1998 after their IPO posted the then largest single-day gains. They had listed their shares for $9, which had spiked as high as $97 before ending the day at $63.50 for a market cap of $840 million, despite never, before or after, making a profit. LookSmart was founded in 1995 in Australia by a husband and wife pair of McKinsey execs and was an early search engine competing against Yahoo and AltaVista. By 1999, LookSmart was the 12th most visited website on the planet, and in August, the founders leveraged a $55 million Microsoft contract into an IPO at a $1 billion valuation. By March 2000, LookSmart was worth $7 billion without any meaningful new business. But perhaps the best-known example of the dot-com bubble was Pets.com. Pets.com was a relative latecomer, launched in November 1998. Well, boy, did they make sure to make the most of their time within the bubble. Pet supplies over the internet? It's not a terrible idea. The problem was how they were going about it. In its first fiscal year, Pets.com spent $11.8 million in advertising to generate about $620,000 in revenue. Even before the cost of advertising, the website was selling products for about a third the cost of the merchandise. In a normal context, no rational investor would give Pets.com a second glance. But this wasn't a normal context. It was the dot-com boom, and Pets.com was a perfect dot-com company. It had .com in the name. And so, in June 1999, Pets.com secured its first round of financing, about $50 million for about 50% of the company. Which brings us back to our original topic, top signals. Because if you ask basically anyone what they remember the top signal of the dot-com bubble was, the majority of people are going to give you the same answer, the Pets.com Super Bowl commercial. Pets.com spent $1.2 million to air whatever that was during the Y2K Super Bowl. And I don't think inflation-adjusted numbers are a good way to get a sense, so let me put it this way. A 30-second commercial in 2022 cost $6.5 million. Now look, there have been a ton of stupid commercials, and most have been completely lost to history. But this commercial was so dumb that it broke outside of the nerdy tech world and became part of the general conversation for a few weeks, long enough for Pets.com to IPO and raise another $83 million less than 1 month after the commercial aired. You probably know what's coming next. 9 months after their IPO, on November 7th, 2000, Pets.com stopped taking orders, and then, 2 days later, laid off 225 of their 320 employees. They had burned through the entirety of the $300 million they had raised. And it wasn't only Pets.com. By late 2000, the dot-com bubble was undeniably bursting. Webvan, The Globe, LookSmart, and basically every other dot-com darling was either in flames or already collapsed. The companies that survived, names like Amazon, Google, and others you know today, saw their stock draw down by more than 75%. In macro, while the tech industry was not doing itself any favors, the geopolitical situation seemed like it was conspiring to make any relief impossible. A recession in Japan, rising interest rates, increasing skepticism about tech and internet companies. The environment was bad and every day it was getting worse. And then, fall 2001 came, and the world was changed forever. 4 planes took off the morning of September 11th and never made it to their destination. Everyone's lives changed, and the world became a worse place on that day. And in its aftermath, giants began to fall. The capitalist gods among us were revealed to be complete and utter pretenders, sitting on a throne of lies and crime. We exalted these executives as being made of something different, rubbing elbows with politicians and altruistically crafting legislation. But it turned out that they are not only defrauding customers, but using their monopoly position to extract profits, no matter the cost. In November 2001, just weeks after 9/11, Enron collapsed, bringing Arthur Andersen with it. The dot-com bubble came out of nowhere, swept into the hearts and minds of billions of people, built everyone into dreamers, and then collapsed into a fiery heap. Netscape launched in 1994, and the bubble was undeniably deflating by the end of 2000. Everything happened so fast, it was so easy to get caught up in the hype. Just part of the culture was to throw some money at these meme stocks and then to begin dreaming about cars and yachts. If you were paying close enough attention, you saw some troubling signs early on. Some things that screamed, "You're in the realm of 23-year-olds lighting money on fire. You should leave while you still can." Lots of things that, in retrospect, should have been called top signals. But when that sock puppet showed up in the Super Bowl, the holy altar of American capitalism, shilling bags of dog food for half the cost that it took to manufacture it, that was the moment that crossed the line. The moment where everyone realized, what are we doing? And once we hit that moment, there's no coming back. Yes, macro was terrible. Yes, individual actors were exacerbating the situation. Yes, everyone was way over leveraged, and whatever pain had to come was multiplied. But what it really comes down to is human psychology. The same phenomena that transformed Jim Clark and Mark Andreessen's mediocre dial-up browser into a multi-trillion-dollar asset bubble was able to take it down basically overnight. From Earth to the moon and back, all in about half a decade. For the vast majority of people, the dot-com boom is remembered with some nostalgia for a time of wide-open dreaming, and a lot of pain and regret for the wealth lost chasing millions. While it depends who you ask, most people who got sucked into the dot-com boom ended up poorer and unprepared for the recession that it created. The individual human experience of the dot-com boom can be described as a little exuberance followed by a lot of punishment. But here's the funny thing about the way life works. While it's true that the median experience of the dot-com boom and bust was pretty miserable, the collective experience was pretty remarkable. It fundamentally changed the lives of every single human that walks this earth, stretching on into an infinite future. The dot-com bubble was a fire that burned hotter and brighter than anything we'd ever seen before. While it burned millions in the process, it was the crucible that created the modern internet. Google was founded in 1998. Amazon was founded in 1994. PayPal was founded in 1995. The companies that would form the pillars of our modern internet were formed out of the same substance that created Webvan or theglobe.com. Many companies did not make it, but they laid the foundations for what was to come. People in the 1990s fell head over heels in love with the internet, and then that love faded, but the internet did not care. It just kept on growing, slowly, relentlessly, until it completely transformed our lives. Think about your day-to-day. Your iPhone woke you up, you check your messages, you use your GPS to get to work, you spend all day writing emails, having Zoom meetings, browsing Reddit. On your way home, you order groceries, which are delivered and waiting for you. Then you search for a new recipe, you make an excellent dish. Then maybe you'll stream some home video content before you go to sleep listening to your favorite podcasts. None of this was possible before or even during the dot-com bubble, but the dot-com bubble created the world you have today. Everything we used to make fun of dot-com founders, the dreams, the ambitions, the audacity, everything ended up kind of working out just the way they said it would. It's just that they weren't the guys that could get it done. That's usually how it works out. The loudest ones are great at raising attention and capital, but they are very rarely able to actually deliver. So who can deliver? It's not the founders of Webvan or LookSmart. It's not the Do Kwons or the Zuzus or the SBFs of the world. The people who are truly going to change the world are much quieter. Let's take a look at the winner of the first and second cycle of the internet, Jeff Bezos. Now, I've never met him, never spoken to him. I've barely read anything he's ever written or said. But here's something I'm absolutely certain of. In 1993, when Jeff Bezos was sitting at his office at the hedge fund of D.E. Shaw & Company, he literally saw the future. He saw the same future that all the Moonboy CEOs saw, the same ones we're sitting in right now. But Jeff Bezos didn't walk into the public square and declare he was going to build the future the Jetsons could only dream of. Jeff Bezos saw that future. Jeff Bezos wanted to be the one to create that future. In 1994, when he left his job to start an internet company, he did not set out to start the world's largest, most important logistics and cloud computing company in the history of the world. He just wanted to sell books. 2022 is an incredibly volatile and stressful year, especially in the crypto industry. We're experiencing the collapse of a bubble, one that continues to deflate long after any of us thought possible. There's a lot to take away from the lessons of the dot-com bubble, and a lot of critically important differences. But there's one thing that is the same. The noise of the market obscures the technological magic that is happening right before our eyes. As I look around for this cycle's Jeff Bezos, I'm looking for quiet builders who can see the future. I'm looking for people and teams that can not only master the metagame being played today, but use that mastery to command a leading position in the next meta. I'm looking for dreamers who can see decades into the future, but are only interested in talking about ideas that can be implemented within the next quarter. and I'm looking for leaders who are building more than products, that are building institutions. When I look around for this cycle's Jeff Bezos, there seems to be one clear fit: Sam Kazemian. But we're not here to discuss crypto's champions. We're here to discuss top signals, and more specifically, what we can learn from them. In 2000, after Pets.com put a sock puppet on national TV and created the world's best example of a top signal, the market fell apart. Billions of paper dollars vanished overnight, and Pets.com alone burned through $147 million in the first 9 months of 2000 before throwing in the towel. But here's the interesting secret behind Pets.com, perhaps the biggest failure in the entire dot-com bubble. Of all the people invested in Pets.com, including, unfortunately, the investing public, the single biggest investor is probably pretty okay with the way things turned out. For you see, the same guy who lost the most money on the dumbest dot-com company actually ended up being the same guy who basically won the entire thing: Jeff Bezos.